On March 2nd, 1998, 10-year-old Natascha Kampusch left her home in Vienna and began walking to school. She never made it there. A stranger grabbed her around the waist, forced her into a van, and drove away. Just days earlier, Natascha had returned from a family trip to Hungary and still had her passport with her, a seemingly insignificant detail that would later become part of the many theories surrounding her disappearance. The man who took her was Wolfgang Přiklopil, a telecommunications technician. And this was no impulsive abduction. Beneath the garage of his home, Přiklopil had constructed a tiny, windowless cell specifically designed to remain hidden. Its entrance was concealed behind a cupboard and protected by a small steel hatch, leading down a narrow concrete staircase. The room was hidden so effectively that years later, even when investigators knew exactly what they were looking for, it reportedly took them nearly an hour to gain access. Natascha was only 10 years old, but from the beginning she understood that surviving meant paying attention. She remembered seeing on television that learning as much as possible about an abductor could one day help identify them. So on her very first night in captivity, she began asking questions, including something as strangely specific as his shoe size. She also asked him to tuck her into bed and tell her a bedtime story. In a terrifying and completely unfamiliar place, she was trying to hold on to whatever small piece of normal childhood she could. But that first night became 8.5 years. Přiklopil controlled almost every aspect of Natascha's existence. He told her that her parents no longer wanted her. He shaved her head, restricted her food while simultaneously insulting her about her weight, and forced her to carry out work around the house while barely clothed. The physical abuse was brutal. Natascha later described being beaten, not only with his hands, but with objects including a cement sack, pruning shears, and a crowbar. After she turned 14, he began shackling her to his bed at night. And yet, almost from the beginning, there was one detail about her abduction that didn't quite fit. A witness had reported seeing 2 men forcing Natascha into the van that morning, not one. That single observation would follow the investigation for years and eventually become central to suspicions that Přiklopil may not have acted alone. Then, on August 23, 2006, after more than 8 years in captivity, Natascha finally saw her opportunity. She was outside vacuuming Přiklopil's car when his phone rang. Because of the noise from the vacuum cleaner, he stepped away to take the call. For the first time in years, Natascha was left unguarded. She ran. She made her way into a neighbor's garden, approached the house and knocked on a window, desperately asking for help. At 28 minutes past 12 that afternoon, police received the call that would finally end one of Austria's most infamous missing child cases. Natascha Kampusch was alive. Přiklopil fled. Within hours, he walked onto railway tracks and threw himself in front of a commuter train, dying before investigators could ever question him about what he had done, or whether anyone else had helped him. Natascha's escape should have answered the mystery surrounding her disappearance. Instead, in many ways, it created another one. Questions immediately emerged about whether Přiklopil really could have planned and carried out everything alone. The original witness account describing 2 abductors resurfaced. Then came increasingly disturbing theories, including claims that Přiklopil himself may have been killed to prevent him from talking. His body was cremated, and controversy followed over the extent of the post-mortem examination carried out before that happened. Of Přiklopil's close friends would later face trial over allegations that he had been involved in the kidnapping. Investigators also examined possible connections to wider European child trafficking networks and even a French serial killer. None of those theories was ever proven. A major 9-month international investigation involving the FBI, ultimately concluded that Přiklopil had acted alone. But the investigation also exposed something deeply uncomfortable. Austrian authorities had missed genuine warning signs during the years Natascha was missing. And the questions surrounding the case didn't disappear with that conclusion. A decade after Natascha escaped, a journalist published a book based partly on videotapes recovered from Přiklopil's home. Recordings he had made of Natascha himself during her captivity. Natascha went to court attempting to prevent the book's release. She lost. The material reportedly revealed further details about the abuse she had endured and reignited the uncomfortable public fascination with her captivity, raising another question entirely. After everything that had been taken from her, how much of her story was the public entitled to know? Through it all, Natascha herself has remained consistent on one crucial point. She believes Wolfgang Přiklopil acted alone. She also made another decision that attracted enormous attention. She kept the house where she had been imprisoned. To outsiders, owning the place where she spent 8.5 years trapped beneath the ground can seem impossible to understand. But Natascha has defended the decision as something deeply personal, a way of taking ownership of the place rather than allowing it, or what happened inside it, to continue owning her. August 2026 marks 20 years since Natascha Kampusch escaped. 2 decades since an 18-year-old girl saw a tiny opportunity, ran from the man who had controlled almost half of her life, and finally reached that neighbor's window. Her family has spoken publicly about just how difficult the anniversary and the years of relentless scrutiny surrounding her case have been for her. Because while the world remembers the extraordinary story of the girl who escaped after 8.5 years underground for Natascha Kampusch, it was never simply a mystery or a headline. It was her childhood,